Well, good morning to you. Happy Friday to you. Glad you're along. I'm just gonna take a big breath because we've got a major. I'm almost to the point of almost disbelief. Let's roll the open. How about it? Come on, BB, get your stuff together. Let's roll the open. Talking Baseball Australia Live. Baseball's best mate. We're on the air now. Here we go in 3, 2, 1.
It's Talking Baseball Australia. It's baseball updates you'll really love. The MLB and ABL news you want. With Paul Morgan and Dan Vaughn. It's baseball's best mate all year round. From the batter's box to...
And we are on the air. Bring him on right now from the West. And, boy, I'll tell you, again, this is first off, before I go any further, good morning to you, sir. Good morning. How are you doing? How was the wake up call this morning?
Yes, woke up to many messages this morning. Of course, it should, in theory, be opening day here in the West, but woke up to many a message suggesting it may not be opening day here in the West. Of course, backstory, the New South Wales has had a bit of a small sort of COVID flare-up, which has left our Premier here, Mark McGowan, who's pretty happy to slam the border shut at any possible sign of anything going possibly pear-shaped. And so the border's come crashing down, gone crashing up, should I say, out of New South Wales again, which has left tonight's series highly in doubt. We're trying to sort of get an official confirmation, an official word, DV, but boy, it sounds like it may not be as you like to say. It's baseball time in WA, but it's sounding more and more like it may not be baseball time in WA. But,
yeah, I didn't put a breaking news sounder, but there it is right there. But this is again. This is a fluid situation, and I'll just tell you what our show originally, our lineup card, the one I basically turned in to the league office, quote unquote, kind of being tongue in cheek here, but I had Lachlan Dale, director of baseball operations for the Heat and head of baseball WA. That was our featured guest today. He's still going to be on in the back half of the show. He moved him back to the back of the show because, well, first off, what we should be talking about is last night's game in Sydney with Melbourne and Sydney. That's not even on the top 4 stories of the day. So we're kind of changing the fly here. And we're going to go with this topic first. I want to hear from you guys as well. We've reached out, and our sources are telling us, and I think you've got reliable sources, I've got reliable sources, it ain't looking good. I don't know the exact flight schedule coming from the east to the west, but for a 7 o'clock game tonight, it's now past 10 o'clock in the east. Canberra is not as a collective, not on a plane heading west. Of course, there's a time change difference, and that's not uncommon, but usually when the teams come west, they arrive around lunchtime in the west, and they basically strap it on and go. It's kind of what they do, especially for Cameron's case. And we've traveled the league, you and I have, so we know how the travel works. And they've not departed from what we've been told. Folks back east, and I've got sources in both Victoria and in New South Wales that have already told me that they ain't playing tonight in the West, that this thing's not happening. The government in the West, you mentioned a moment ago, the Premier mentioned those borders are slammed shut. The league is telling us they have no comment at the moment. And that's just a flat out, nothing's come out. Although, and I'm going to put this on the screen for you guys, we did see this, and I got this actually, you've seen it too, but Matt sent this from Maggie East as well. Let me share the screen. There's a tweet from Julian Abbott, and I'll read it to you before I put it up. It says, breaking, the ABL season disarray with the Canberra Cavalry still in Canberra after they were due to fly to Perth this morning for tonight's first game against the Heat. COVID outbreaks spooking everyone. Canberra is also short of players with some in Sydney. So I don't know how those dots exactly connect, but that apparently is the situation. So, man, I don't even know where to start with this thing, partner. I don't even know. I mean, you went to bed last night thinking, okay, it's opening day, and you guys can't really see it. It's too small to tweet on the screen. But anyway, I thought I could show it to you guys. It's way too small. But I read it to you so you guys get the gist of it. You went to sleep last night, getting prepared for an opening day broadcast. I was working on stat packs and notes and things of that nature, and screeching halt. Pretty serious stuff, don't you think? Am I jumping off a cliff here, or what's going on? I mean, help me out here.
No, look, it's very, 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 very interesting, DV, and I think this is what. Look, if you had looked at Tuesday this week, you would have been so optimistic about the baseball season starting. You would have said that, look, Manny Ramirez is going to be playing on Thursday night, which is going to be great for the Blue Sox. Things are going to be amazing there. Yeah, the Cavs and the Heat, they're going to go to battle on Friday night. Going to be an amazing 4-game series. Life's going to be good. You know, like baseball's back. How exciting. Ramirez, he's late scratching from something that no one's really, like, we're assuming it's an injury, but no one's really sort of clarifying what the injury is. No, they don't need to really clarify what the injury is, but apparently he was at the field yesterday, though, which is good. So, that's sort of even though it didn't seem to dent the Blue Sox, and of course their 12-6 win last night over the Aces. You have the Cavalry, who are supposedly still in Canberra. Of course, a lot of their players in New South Wales, which is obviously an issue at the moment getting into Western Australia. So you go from Tuesday being pretty optimistic and upbeat about this thing, Wednesday optimistic, upbeat about this thing. News of Manny breaks, not end of the world stuff, but just not even disappointing, but just more along the lines of,
Sure.
I would love to see him play, but that sort of hurdle gets hit, and then we're dealing with a COVID situation before the first pitch is thrown out in the West, which is look, it's a tough one, DV, to kind of to get to, but it's and we know Canberra have got issues with their roster as well, and this is probably partly the reason why there's players scattered through New South Wales and in Sydney as well. So, but Jared asked for the Heat be playing it this weekend, so we don't know 100%. As I said, we get sent a lot of information from a lot of people. The mail is they won't be, but let's just keep our fingers crossed that our mail's wrong.
Yeah, there's been no official word, Jared. All indications are, and I tried my hardest to get something from somebody that was official. By the way, this just came to me. This came from Stuart Capel back east, and I'm looking at Twitter right now, so I see this now. But former Heat broadcaster Big Cameron actually follows up with his, because he now works for the ABC, I believe. Am I correct, partner? But Ben just followed a tweet up. That Julian Abbott tweet with further to this. He had this about 30 minutes ago. Melbourne in crisis talks to get out of New South Wales, possibly hightailing it via car to the border today. Now, apparently, this all goes back. Now, what I understand from watching, I do watch the Australian news. Did you see that?
I've seen also that another tweet come through, DV, from Brett McKay, who's part of the ABC in Canberra, saying 2 points. Canberra didn't fly to Perth this morning after a huge chunk of their squad were unable to enter WA. Second point, also understand Melbourne are looking at whether to stay in Sydney to complete their series against the Blue Sox or not. So we have a double problem here now, DV. Of course, as you said as well, Ben Cameron, also from ABC. So these guys are in the know. Like, and these are all blue tick verified people on Twitter as well. These are not people who are just having fly-by-nights and have reputations to uphold, as the dog's getting it on it as well. But the Aces could be out of New South Wales ASAP. Highly likely we'll see baseball in Perth tonight. So unfortunate as well. But again, various people as well have come through and said this is multiple people, multiple journalists out there,
Sorry, guys.
as well as multiple sources for us as well, who have suggested that Canberra did not fly to Perth this morning after a huge chunk of the squad not permitted into Western Australia, being in New South Wales, and Melbourne looking to hightail their way out of Sydney as well. Of course, that Northern Beaches cluster. Now, Melbourne are the interesting point in this as well, DV, because the city of Melbourne, as very well known in Australia and other parts of the world, Melbourne went through an incredible lockdown that was just, like almost not catastrophic, but just was almost unthinkable. They've done so much work to get to 0 cases. that you would imagine if they want to have any chance of being in Melbourne this summer, they got to get themselves out of there because, boy, I tell you, if they come back, if people of Melbourne have to go back into lockdown, there will be anarchy in Victoria, and it is a total mess, a total mess.
For our folks watching us in North America on Thursday night, what's triggered all this was a cluster of COVID positive tests or cases, whatever we call it. And of course, they set up forth, as Australia does, the contact tracing. And I believe it was in the Sydney suburbs toward the beaches, if I'm not mistaken, according to watching the local news and reading the papers there. And this has been bubbling on the horizon for a couple of days. And, I think there was a general feeling amongst folks in the West, some of the folks even maybe perhaps in baseball, that there was a chance, possibly Monday or Tuesday of next week, that this could be a real issue. But I think everybody thought, for the most part, this weekend was going to be okay. And I think that's what the general feeling was. So I think this comes as a real surprise. The fact that they're going through shutdown possibly and all that, that's not a surprise. But the fact that I think that they thought it may be a couple days down the road, that kind of caught folks, there was no surprise about this, but there was a surprise. I guess it's what I'm saying to you. Northern beaches, I guess. Okay, I think I said southern.
So the northern beaches.
Beautiful area.
Beaches, they've all been asked to stay at home now as well to sort of cluster Sydney's northern beaches as well. So that's. But as I said, the multiple reports now suggesting that there will be no baseball in the West. So we'll have to sort of, again, we can't get confirmation of this, DV. We need to get confirmation because people need to know because it's 12 hours before the first pitch. So.
And let me defend the Heat here in this situation too, because I'm going to tell you that I tweeted to promote the show about a couple hours ago, and I scheduled that tweet in advance so it would go up right before the show started about 25 minutes ago. If you saw tweets this morning or social media this morning, there's several programs out there. Hootsuite's one of them that I think off the top of my head, but you can schedule your tweets and post through your platforms anyway. That's my guess is that the Heat probably had some good morning breakfast. Hey, it's Friday, we're going to play ball, that kind of deal already scheduled. So if you're seeing that and you're wondering why is the Heat said anything, why they started playing, that was their normal social media schedule. They didn't expect anything like this at all. And you hear my message box is going off. I did reach out to several sources that I have within the league, and I'm not, different folks that I'm just not, and I didn't, I asked the question. And they respect me asking, but the league issued a no comment. I'm very serious. That was it. There's nothing else to say, which tells me that there's obviously something in the works because it is still early morning, throughout the country.
Oh, that's right, man. As I said, I woke up at 5:30 this morning. It's only 7:20 here in Perth, so it's only 7:20 a.m. So it's not, it's not like it's not like a lot of the days happen. But as I said, I woke up to lots of messages suggesting this thing, and like you, David, I've reached out to a few people that would probably be able to give us confirmation, but Linton, that's why there should be more hubs.
Yes.
Look, I mean, it's very hard. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think nobody in this scenario. I think everyone has done the absolute best for the time and the situation, and I think, look, again. If you're a 1 o'clock to Tuesday, there's games going ahead this week. Manny Ramirez is playing. Life's good, and this is, I guess, what happens with the coronavirus and COVID. It's just it can change everything in a minute. So I don't think they should have played. I don't think there should have been a hub model or anything. I think what they were doing was right, and I think everyone knew that I'd spoken to DV anyway. Everyone had knew that there were risks with this season, major risks with this season, but. Anyway, it's.
I'm getting odds and ends coming as we're talking. Anyway, let's rewind. Okay, I mentioned what the show was going to be. First off, can I be kind of tongue in cheek? Can I have a little fun here? I'm not making fun of anybody, but baseball has its reputation for being a little boring. I've talked about this before. Even the news for baseball can be boring. I got to tell you, in the last month in the ABL, all the waves and ups and downs, and the more news crammed into a month than I will get in 5 years in the American Association. I mean, nothing ever happens like this. I mean, the biggest thing we had was the situation last spring in America with when they were going to play or not. But there's been, let's think back. You've had the Auckland situation. You've had Jawan Korea, that situation. You've had, the lashing back of teeth back and forth. We've gone through, of course, adding Manny, and we've had, certain imports not get in. We're going to talk about that. What was the schedule going to look like? Will they have hubs? Is there going to be TV? All these things have been going on, and I've never in my career. I'm an old guy. I've done this for a while. I've never been to a stretch where this much news has happened in this short amount of time, in about a month's time. And it in a way, I want to say it's exciting, but it definitely keeps your attention. That's what I'm going to say. Hello there, Omar. You mentioned what Linton said as well. Here's what we're going to do. Yes,
I was going to say, Dave, the good news is the Heat have got a new nice black kit and a red kit from a Heat perspective anyway. So, there might be a few ring-ins as well, and maybe there's still baseball this weekend or something.
That'll look good for tonight. Here's what we have on tap. We're going to talk more about this, and I'm going to keep you guys there. I'm going to keep digging while we're on the air. We do have Rockland Dale the second half hour. I've got that ready to go. It's good stuff. Also, there was the situation with Manny, which usually that probably been the story, or at least one. Actually, here's the funny part. My original rundown of the show was Sydney Melbourne last night, what happened, and break those highlights, and how that game went. We're not going to get to those highlights because we don't have time for it with all this stuff. I mean, with our show, I just tossed the highlights out. I had them all ready to go for you. I'm going to go through them and talk about the key points of the game, but I just said, this is too important. And then, of course, the Manny situation, and then the gift to Gope situation as well. That was also front of my mind as well. That seemed a little transparent as well. But so suddenly, all those things get pushed back, and there's a lot going on. And sadly, and this is why I feel bad for the league. I feel bad for Cam Vale, both the Aces brass and the Blue Sox brass. There should have been a celebration of baseball last night and today. Instead, I already mentioned the streaming situation. That caught a lot of people off kilter as well. You throw that on there. People are talking about this situation and the stream as opposed to, hey, the Blue Sox won, which was sort of an upset. If you're looking at it as a punter, you're thinking, that was an upset last night. Instead, we're not going to talk about that game hardly at all, except for the fact that we've already mentioned it, and that's pretty much it. So it's a crazy year, mate. I can't think of any time with what I've done for a living it's ever been like this. Can you?
No, I mean, no. But that's what you're saying, Dave. I mean, it's one of those times that you mentioned it, like also Gift Nagope was supposed to come to Brisbane. We read that he can't sort of get his visa or can't get cleared to come through, and then next minute we have Gifts playing for Melbourne, which is something that you and I both had a chat with earlier in the week to sort of say, what's going on there. We don't quite get that. And the stream last night didn't receive the most positive comments on the planet, which is disappointing because obviously a new partnership as well for the Blue Sox. So hopefully, if there's baseball in Sydney tonight, which again is now also got a major question mark next to it as well, it's hard, DV, because the stream's always been free, so hard to complain for a product that's free. But if you're paying for a product, last night it wasn't at the level you'd like it to be, DV.
Let me give you a baseball person's perspective. I love watching the highlights. When I was watching the game today, I watched the highlight reel. I watched the game replay this morning. What's the most important thing about any sport that has a ball? I mean, what's the most important thing from a visual standpoint? Well, where the ball is. I mean, right? I mean, if you're playing footy, you want to know where the footy is. You're playing NFL, you want to know, or whatever. You're playing baseball, basketball. You've got to follow the ball. And there were shots. There were some amazing plays made, but I can't tell you what those plays were because I couldn't see those plays. Apparently, there was a really good call of a great play in foul territory, a diving play, and I see the body off in the distance make a diving play, but I can't tell the degree of difficulty because the camera was not set up to follow the ball properly in the corners of the screen. And I know it wasn't shot with 10 cameras. This wasn't a World Series product, but following those great plays, and I heard the commentators, saying, "Oh, I believe it was Big Cam saying, "Oh, what a great play." But honestly, all I saw was a dot, and I thought the ball came out of the guy's glove. It turns out that was his cap because I couldn't even see on the screen what was happening. That's my complaint. I'm not going to. I hate to criticize what broadcasters do because that's what we do, and people can nitpick us apart. I know they can. I don't want to come off like that, but the camera angles were my problem. The graphics, that's your call. You want to do graphics, that's your bit. But my thing is, when I can't see where the ball is on a great play, this is why I come back again, partner. If I'm not watching it, but I'm hearing it, and I know it's a great play, and Big Cam's telling me, or Paul, or whoever's on the broadcast call, if you and I, what a great play. We're painting a picture with our audio. That's radio is such a great thing for baseball, but for some reason that falls on deaf ears. So instead, we're getting a visual product where I can't really see the ball. And I assume that was a great play, but I can't tell you that I didn't see it. And that's not a highlight you can sell to the world because you can't even use that highlight because you can't even see the player. And that's my problem. There was not so much. I saw a lot of people talking about the graphics and the call. I had no. Yeah. That stuff doesn't bug me.
I thought the call. I thought
the call was great. The guys were great. They were great. I mean, some of the baseball's great. Those guys do a great job. But it's sad those camera angles was what I was upset about. I mean, from my situation, again, that's where I'm coming from. Stuart says, "Good morning. Any news? Another quiet week? Yeah. Today the Aces signed. The Perth signed. We're going to go for the hot stove today. It's such a boring league. We're going to go to the hot stove, partner. But anyway, that was my take on the broadcast. It's the first broadcast. They're going to figure it out, aren't they? I mean,
yeah.
Don't you figure it? If you're charging for that, you got to figure the daggum thing out. I mean, as a director of broadcasting the team owns in Kansas City, if that all happened, I'm telling you. They would be all right. I'll be fixing it. Yeah. I'm sorry. Let me talk about
it. If you're charging people, you have to have that. You have to have better camera angles if you're charging people. Like that's.
Back to the camera situation. Let me throw this out there to you, and maybe why we've not heard anything from the Heat yet. It's speculation, but I would not doubt this. You and I have access to the rosters that are not just the Heat's active roster, but also the reserves, the young kids, the younger players. There's a lot of kids that could be plugged into action to play for Canberra if Canberra can get players into the state. And apparently what we understand is Canberra's got some players here, some players there, and possibly part of that group can get to Perth and then use some local players. That was the plan a couple of weeks ago. As a matter of fact, you and I joked about that. I think on this very show about possibly some of the old guys playing for the Canberra Cavs against the Heat. And we were talking about that. So that scenario could be in play. That may also be why Perth's not come out with anything official tweet-wise or anything else. But it sounds like the journalism folks out there on top of this. Thoughts on that, partner?
Yeah, well, look, I think so, in some capacity. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're in the West, I mean, the part is you're probably at some point. I mean, the Heat are going to go and play some kind of a game this weekend. You would have thought, regardless, whether it's inter squad or whatever, if Canberra can't come in. So I mean, there's that. But and I just that tweet on the screen now. I think that's probably the most important. If you're going to, I think that's actually. This is probably more, and to your point as well, DV, I think if Manny Ramirez was playing last night and hit a bomb to right field and the camera was locked on the second baseman, I mean, it's very hard. I mean, and this is where probably Sydney more than anyone, Sydney's broadcast from a pitcher's point of view have probably the biggest job to do of any team because, again, Ramirez hits a bomb to right field, there is a strong chance that ESPN.
No doubt. No doubt. We've seen his picture I saw his picture in the Washington Post and the New York Times this week on top of one of the buildings in Sydney. I mean, the CBD. The photo you talked about from a couple of weeks ago, that's made the rounds in the United States. I guarantee you, if Manny hits a home run, that's on ESPN across North America, and they're like, suddenly folks are watching Sydney Blue Sox games and want to see Manny. That again, but the league has done a great job with this highlight. There's a highlight, and I'm not going to go into the whole technical side. There's a company that makes a highlight software. And what it does is, during your broadcast, it pulls the highlights manually, and you're able to customize them with some kind of social media. It's really good. It's good stuff. It basically saves you a lot of trouble. It's a headache saver. Well, last night, if Manny would have been playing, and you had a highlight of a home run of him, you wouldn't be able to use it. I mean, the networks would have not been able to use it because you couldn't see the ball leave the park. You couldn't even see him. I mean, there was a point where Darryl George had a triple, and the guys on the air were saying it was going to be tough for him to get there. The only thing that saved the play was the fact that the third base camera caught his slide in, but I never knew where the ball went. Only reason I knew where the ball went is because the guys on the air told me. The video showed me nothing. I had no idea where the ball went. And that's where I'm coming back to it. On a radio call, you know where the ball goes to right center, left center, drops in front of the right field, or whatever. But on the video doesn't help me at all, and so I wasn't sure where the ball was coming from, except for the guys on the play-by-play told me, but the video didn't show me. So that's where I'm coming from. Now, you can't sell those highlights to anybody. If you can't, they're not going to carry those. They're not. I mean, this happened a few years ago in Kansas City. There was a great play that made SportsCenter and Fox Sports number one play, but only because the broadcast was such that we were able to use the highlight. If it would have been shot with two cameras, we would have been SOL. But luckily, we had a professional broadcast. ESPN jumped right on it and put a random minor league game as their play of the night. I mean, that's what you're not. But that's my concern. So again, I'm not trying to dogpile them on there, but yeah, Stewart's right on there. What about this scenario? I don't think that Cameron may not play tonight, okay? But let's just say this, for example, your Heat players are there. They were doing something. Could it be inter-squad type thing?
Yeah, I'd imagine that there'd have to be something. I mean, at the end of the day, like I'm looking out my window now, DV. The sky is just so beautifully blue at the moment, and it's just absolutely, it's just such a. It's like this weekend. It's basically complete blue skies, and tonight it's 35 degrees, 34 degrees here in the west. I mean, it's mid 30s or mid 90s and blue skies and sun all weekend long for this series. So it would be a travesty, DV, to ruin this beautiful baseball weather. But it is such an incredibly beautiful day looking out the window now here in the west. And DV, as you know, nothing. We don't often get rainouts in the west, and it's just it's like everything in the world is coming together for this perfect opening night. Beautiful, warm weather, but COVID's got other ideas, unfortunately. But yeah, look, you'd imagine that the Rays still want to get their work in. The Tampa Bay Rays prospects, of course, the Heat players that are here as well would want to get their work in. I mean, everyone's scheduled to go. Tickets are bought. Chips are purchased to get put in the fryer and everything. So you imagine there'd be something happening. The beer kegs would be purchased. They've been dropped off, and boy, I feel for Steve and the team at the Heat as well. If you work hard and no different to anyone, Lockie, everyone putting the roster together, you work hard and all this, and then you get to this point, DV, and it's just this. But you'd imagine there'll be something. But raining in Sydney as well, so maybe if it's not the Aces trying to hightail out of town, it might be the weather trying to stop baseball there as well.
Lost in the last night's ballgame. I want to give a shout out. We talked about the broadcast itself, but quickly, just in case you missed last night here, we're talking Baseball Australia Live. Baseball's best mate, Dan Vaughn, with you, and Paul Morgan. It was a 12-6 final last night. Aces dropping the opener against Sydney. A little bit of a mild upset, I would think, although I like the pitching matchup, initially. Tip of the cap to Sydney. They had 1,021 last night. That was higher than their average last year. They averaged, I think, 909 fans per ball game. They beat their home average last year. And it's a good opening night crowd. Granted, there was some weather in the area. I understand there was a little bit of that, but not a terrible night on a Thursday night. 1,000 folks in what's been a strange off season, but a big tip of the cap. And for what I saw and what I was able to gather from the broadcast, fans were engaged. They were into it. I thought the atmosphere looked like they were, in mid-season form as far as fandom was going. So a big tip of the cap to Adam Dobb and the entire Blue Sox front office. I thought it was a very good show from what I could tell on the broadcast, and just the fan numbers. I mean, you get 1,000 folks on a Thursday night. That's a good start to a good weekend. Now, granted, what happens full, but I want to give a tip of the cap there, just chopping that up. Chris says, hello, lads. Good to see you, too. I do want to get a couple things, too. First off, this Manning thing, before we kind of move on to Rocky, I don't think I'm concerned from a standpoint, more or less. I mean, there's a lot of people just throwing things up against the wall there. But I get the feeling that whatever it is, if it was something, it's obviously not COVID, we know that. Whatever this possibly is, he's still there. He seems to be all still thumbs up. This is something that's just a minor setback. Just bad timing.
Yeah, no, I think he was at the game. He was at the game last night, from what I heard, which is great. And look, I'm sure it's just a tweaked hamstring or tweaked groin or tweaked something. But anyway, I mean, look, Manny effect has just been so positive and so good for baseball in this country. I mean, it almost. I mean, even in a way, I mean, if he can, even if the injury prevents him from playing this season, I think it's still, at the end of the day, it's still. To have him in the country and doing what he's doing is probably, in many ways, DV is just as important as him playing anyway. Just having him here and just getting the exposure and good to see Adam as out there as well. And look, I take my hat off to Adam as well for a lot of people tend to sort of, but the stream wasn't at all at a standard that he would have appreciated or the Sports Flicks subscribers would have hoped for. So it's again, to Adam, like tip the cap to you, because it's great to sort of come out and say that that's not at the standard it needs to be, and we all know that. I hope the fans realize how lucky they are in the Australian Baseball League, because let's just go to random baseball league around the world. Your owner's not going to come on a show like this and tell you how it is and respond. They're not, I mean, I live in a major market where, the nonsense that goes on with the Texas Rangers never gets addressed in the media, and no one ever knows what the heck's going on. And you got Adam going, look, hey, my product was not good on the video side, and I'm going to fix it. And I think you can see that all across the league. You've got some really engaged owners and key stakeholders are going to say, look, and again, my thing was not, again, it was just opportunity. And I know they'll fix it, but I don't even think that we're the dog piling. Number two, the fact that he comes on and says that's a big deal to me. And that should make folks feel pretty good. And it's opening night. I mean, I get it. That's, you remember back in the day, and I saw Ken Wedemeyer watching a few minutes ago. We were back in our first year together as broadcasters. We had like something like 6 spring games, and we practiced, and I kept going, why are we practicing? So when we got to opening night, we wouldn't drop the ball. What happened? We still dropped the ball, because that's just the nature of the beast. It's what happens in this business. You drop the ball, so it happens. All right, 1,000 folks is great. Just to your point, DV. Though it's like I agree with you with Adam coming on here, because I think in Major League Baseball, what you've seen with Steve Cohen going on to take on the Mets ownership, and Steve's been pretty active on Twitter as well, sort of interacting with fans, sort of saying, hey, who should we go for, and blah, blah, blah. And I love it. I think it's so much better and so much refreshing, because, the Blue Jays, who I support and kind of did a bit of work with over the years, they're owned by a big corporation, and you wouldn't, no one would, if you had a problem with that franchise, no one's ever going to say it. And then they own the media, so the media ain't going to say it either in Toronto. So when the team owns the media company who run the broadcast and the radio show, ain't nobody saying anything negative about the owners.
No. Well, that's what the Cowboys. That's the Dallas Cowboys. Which Jerry Jones owns. He owns his own Blue Star Network and all. He hires his own reporters. I mean, of course, the local national media. He's got his own people writing his own features for him. He's got his own his own post game people that do their own thing on the network. I mean, you got you do that. I mean.
These pro sports teams that almost have their mini North Korean sort of style shows that everything's fine, folks. Everything's good. But
I want to touch quickly too. We were going to jump into all of this earlier. We just don't have time because we had Lockie standing by. I reached out again. I did a lot of research from several, and I'm going to go with the unnamed sources. I'm not going to name because there's multiple folks who told me this from various places in the league. Some just fans, some front office people. But I was confused on the whole. When Brisbane came out and said, "Okay, we can't get these guys into the country, so we'll release them." And they were good players. And Nagope was the headliner on Bollinger, and there were others. That list, I believe, Bollinger, Goatsman, Terrell Harris, Wes Garble. There's a member of Team Canada. He wants to get some reps there. Those guys were all released. Aces sweep in, pick up, gift, and a big coup. And but there was no questions were asked by them. Brisbane kind of, and I thought it was interesting. There wasn't a lot said from their end, just saying we need to see these guys go. I was really confused about that. That didn't make sense. How come one guy couldn't get into Brisbane or get into Australia with Brisbane, but he could get in with Melbourne? I was confused by that. That didn't make any sense to me. Were you as perplexed about that whole deal as I was? I mean, Aces fans have got to be just giddy, but were you? What the hell's going on here?
Yeah. I mean, it's bizarre because we read an article saying, like that almost the visas had been capped, or sort of, everyone that would come in, and so Gift wasn't coming to Brisbane. Then next minute he's coming to Melbourne. But it's hard because I think what's missing, DV, is there's probably a perfectly reasonable explanation for it, but the part that's missing for us, for us that aren't involved in those franchises, is the perfectly reasonable explanation. So it's
right.
Sort of you sit there kind of.
Well,
not that everyone. I mean, not that at the end of the day, not that everyone needs to know the ins and outs of what goes on in franchises. But I mean, it's probably it is something that needs to be addressed as to how it actually can happen. How in fact that how can you not be into one team and a week later be in another team? But it's but anyway, it strikes me as slightly odd too. But it's
well, let me give you. Yeah, this is the great man right there, the big Alex right there. Let me give you what I've dug up. Now you can read between the lines as you want to. I'm not considering myself I'm not a big investigative reporter. I'm a play-by-play guy and a storyteller. But this is what I've got for you guys as far as what went down with this. These are all tidbits that I've dug up. And if I was going to write a story, but this is already old news because we've got other news right now with the situation with West. But apparently, what I know is that Brisbane was trying to get in X amount of players in the Home Affairs, who handles the entries for the import players, and they were either going to come through Brisbane or Sydney, and that there was some numbers that got involved there, not just flight numbers, but also potential money numbers. If you've seen some of these flights, they're just ridiculous. The prices are. Home Affairs also, from what I understand, would only allow I believe the number was 12 that they wanted in. They only allowed 6. And that was part of the problem, too. Home Affairs has come out, and I can tell you this personally. I know this for a fact from my situation. Home Affairs was letting it was pretty consistent. If you were in sport, business of any kind, or entertainment, you were going to get in as an import or as an American or Canadian or North American, whatever. You were going to get in the country. But since about December 10th or so, the government has locked that down because they want to get as many Australians home by Christmas as possible. That was what the Prime Minister wanted to do. That was what Campbell was pushing for, the government anyway, not the ball club. They're pushing against many of the Australians who are still overseas, home by Christmas, at least the quarantine, home by Christmas, or get them home to their house by Christmas. And that all fell around the 1st of December. That's when they shut the faucet off of any more imports. I can tell you personally, my situation, where I've been delayed because of that, because they want to get as many of these folks home. That also went into place. So I can tell you this is fluid, but it happened. I mean, the original number was, hey, we want 12, we're going to get 6. Now they're done, right? And then eventually, from what I understand, the prices, because as these domestic flights for imports whittled down, the numbers were being, the airlines know this. They know there's only so many allowed in because they're being told. And they jacked the prices up. That didn't help either. So that also went into play as well. And apparently this went on for about 10 days prior, in which goes with my timeline, because I believe we're on the 1st of December, the goal by the Australian government was to get as many Australians in the country by the 14th or 15th, so they would be home, relatively close to Boxing Day, New Year's, all that. That was the goal. And that's one reason why this faucet dried up. If you heard the interview Nicholas Matters did with the GoPay, he talked about his travel experience was a bit of a crazy one, because I believe he would stop, start, trying to get into Australia. And then he had about a 10-day window where he was stopping, starting, and I believe he's actually even delayed over some point of entry coming in from a third country. So anyway, I know the Bandits weren't happy about this. I mean, who can blame them, because they lost a very marketable player. And it's one of those deals where you may want 12 players in, but the government 2 months ago was like, hey, thumbs up. Now the government's saying, well, we'll let you have 6. And that's kind of what happened. Well, the Queensland allotment was given to Victoria in New South Wales. And this is where the confusing part is. Yes, the Home Affairs handles it, but only handle arrivals in certain places. And so Queensland was allowed X amount, New South Wales X amount, and Victoria X amount. This is where it gets confusing. Where the GoPay was allowed in those other gateways, but by that time, the release already happened. He was able to get in, and the Aces swept in. And that's the way I understand the basic storyline there. Does that confuse the hell out of you?
No, I get it. It's but and Stuart says not this, but had he signed Walker ahead of one of the players that was released. There's been so many. It's such an interesting part. And look, DV, I mean, as I said, there is this gift and a GoPay story, which is so interesting as well. Heck, we haven't even got to the fact that Warwick Sawpole has signed with the Heat long term, and he probably won't return back to playing baseball overseas. Like again, when we should be hypothesizing things like, is there a better 1-2 punch in the league than Sawpole Unsworth?
Lisa Noy is going to be coaching in Brisbane. That's a big deal. The women's coach, and she's coaching the new Caledonian team. That's a story I want to get to. We're not going to get to that today. Brewer's sitting a catcher. By the way, Liam Hendricks is getting courted by the Mets. Not going to get to that. There's a lot of stuff going on. Aaron Whitefield not going to be over, which he's not going to be playing either. And that's not going to be that hurts. And of course, Sydney dropped some names that aren't going to be making it in as well. So there's a lot of these fluid things. But it's funny because those headlines that we're going to kind of lead with, and move to the back of the show, they all got snowballed. Every day, one got pushed down the list every day this week. That's where we stand. I want to get to Rocky. I want to give you a chance to kind of give your final thoughts here, because I want to get to Rocky, get that interview in, because it kind of gives us time.
I'll say this, DV. We're probably going to have to do a midweek special show, or maybe a Sunday night show or something like that, because there is just so much to unpack. As you say, we're sitting here now at, it's just about 8 o'clock here in Perth, 8 a.m. on Friday morning, 11 hours before first pitch. I think you could relatively safely say that Canberra aren't coming to town, but it's the airlines control. So safe to say that probably It'll be a big day of ABL news, DV. Are Melbourne going to head? I think the storylines that as you go into this interview, DV, the question mark storylines are Melbourne getting out of Sydney, and are they going back to Melbourne? What's going on there? Canberra clearly aren't coming to Perth. Is there something else going on there? Heck, the Bandits end up flying in because they're not playing this weekend.
Right.
But their team flying.
I mean, well, yeah. Paul, thank you very much, too, for that. The airlines control their own bookings, right? And that's why I don't want to get to. I follow all those, and you know this as being close, but I follow all the travel blogs and all that, and I'm well up versed on that. I didn't want to go the long haul of back. You did a great job explaining it there, Paul, much better than I did. But yes, the airlines really have got folks by the what's. And there's been some crazy. This was the crazy airfares I've documented, and I check them every day. What we'll do, partner? Let's do this. We originally had planned. I want to give this to you guys too. I had originally planned for a special show we were going to debut this weekend. Paul's on the call with the Heat. I'm over here, and the original plan was for us to do a post-game show when all the games wrapped up, and we're going to do a Talking Baseball Australia, talk about both the Sydney Melbourne games, and I'd already reached out to the guys, the broadcasters there to get us highlights, and we were going to go through that. We were going to do it right as soon as the Heat game was over tonight. That was the original plan. And then we also talked about, and this may be the better idea, because we may have to do a breakfast show now because we not know anything until breakfast tomorrow. And we'd worked up, again, and I'm sure what we worked up. This was going to debut tonight. Extra Innings was the show, was going to debut tonight following the Heat's game with Canberra. That show will not happen tonight, but it's still it's out there. We're going to have that show eventually. When the Heat start playing, we're going to have that. I'll come on right afterwards on Facebook Live and wrap it up both games for you and have highlights and interviews from the games. That what we may do is do a breaking news breakfast show. There's my breakfast graphic. You like this, Paul? It's a good Aussie breakfast there for you with the Talking Baseball logo there. But we'll break down this weekend. We know what's going on, partner. We'll just jump back on it. Does that work for you?
That works for me.
Okay. All right. I send you a rundown. It's like, hey, here's what was our rundown. It's like this is the most useless thing I did all week. Just I don't need it.
This is when, like, sometimes you have the debate of whether you should do a pre-recorded show or a live show. But this is where the big advantage of doing a live show comes in, because doing a live show, you can move with the times. I mean, if we would have recorded this yesterday, we would have sounded like the most two biggest fools on the planet talking about how great baseball's going to be tonight. Boy, can't wait for that Heat Cavs series tonight, and the Aces. That's going to be great. The great series, life's great, everything's good. Like so that's the. Sometimes doing the live is a fiasco, as we know, with technical glitches and this and that. But today's one of those days that I think you just got to roll with it. And plenty of news coming, TV.
Yeah.
And, we'll actually just kind of break it as we see it.
I was better off than those damn rundowns. She used what the kids did me at fourth grade today. I mean, that's Mr. Vaughn's Happy Holidays. That's more like that should have been a rundown for the day right there. That should have been it right there.
Absolutely should have been. Well,
oh boy!
I'll let you get to the fiasco flask, and they'll be doing around.
All right, mate.
Is somewhat back.
Yeah, it's somewhat back, mate. Awesome. Let's get to Lucky. All right, bud. There we go. There's Paul Morgan right there. Baseball's best mate of mine there. Paul Morgan, Dan Vaughn with you on Talking Baseball Australia Live. This was actually taped a few hours ago. Okay, so there's nothing in this video of anything about what the situation is. But I'll come back on the tail end of it. I'll break it down for you one more time. But I'll be standing by to chat with you guys. I usually don't tell you if it's live or not, but usually these interviews are live. But this was good, especially with the folks in the West. I think you'll enjoy this. Rocky's got good insight into what's going on in baseball in general, and I think you'll enjoy it. We'll talk a bit about this. Is more Heat-centric. I'll come back on the tail end of this thing and give you guys a little update if I hear anything between now and then. So without further ado, let's go ahead and go to the man himself, and it's Lachlan Dale here on Talking Baseball Australia Live, baseball's best mate. Well, Talking Baseball Australia Live continues. Baseball's best mate on a Friday morning, and happy opening weekend to the one and only Lachlan Dale, who joins us, the Director of Baseball Ops and the CEO of Baseball Western Australia. Good morning, Lockie. Happy opening day to you. How you doing, mate?
Thanks, Dan. It's exciting times. It's very much an uncertainty for the last 7 or 8 months of how this is going to look. Is it going to look at all? So just great that the players are ready to go, and we're going to have some fans in the stands and play some baseball.
You know, I was thinking through the minor league system in the States, and there's been a lot of reshuffling and all that. Back 17, 18-ish, and I don't know the exact story, but I'd love to hear a little bit about it. You got either a phone call or email or something with this Tampa Rays situation. It seems like it's been a great marriage. I mean, what a coup. The Rays have a loaded farm system. Walk us through how that happened, how the Rays found their way to WA, which I think is the best coup of affiliated marriages in the Australian Baseball League.
Yeah, we're super excited with the relationship with the Rays. It's multi-level, multi-tiered, from not just the players that they send out, it's the coaches, the sports science, a little bit of the organisational development, having the opportunity over the last couple of years to go to their spring training, talk to their coaches, talk to their farm directors, director of minor league operations, international scouts, and watching them progress through the system. They're a big proponent of promoting from within, which so are we, developing a homegrown talent or their local talent from underneath. So watching some of those executives, Hein Bloom obviously moving to the Red Sox, Leander moving up, Mitch Lukovic's moving through. So Carlos Rodriguez is now the director of international scouting. So it's really great to see them promote through. Probably dating back a few years, we're probably coming to wrapping up some of the time with the Orioles. They've been great supporters of the Perth Heat and WA professional baseball for 20 odd years. They had a bit of a reshuffle at the Orioles, as we all know, from top to bottom, change of direction. And some of their players just weren't available to come out to play in the ABL for whatever reason. Not the right mix, not the right structure, not the right strategy. So we put a call into Baseball Australia to Ben Foss at the time to say, look, are there any other organisations out there looking to make moves or come on board? Because we had planned to go independent ball imports or pro ball imports, not affiliated, not sent to by an organisation. So I think we signed our catching needs were high. Matt Kennelly obviously semi-retiring. Alex Hall was maybe 16 or 17 at the time. So we signed a player, Adam Wessenberger, I believe his name was, if you remember. And then it really spiraled really quickly with obviously the Rays sending players to Brisbane. They'd sort of changed a little bit of focus. I think Brisbane had a slightly different strategy with their large Australian contingent, topping up with some of the Chinese Taipei relationship that they've developed, which meant the Rays almost got squeezed out in a certain way. So they became arguably a franchise on the open market. Ben Foster introduced us in negotiating and connected us together. And since then, it's been a great relationship moving forward. Of Mikey Brassow, Jake Fraley, Garrett Whitley early days. Zach Law still in the system. And I think in the next couple of years, we'll start to see some of the players as we go through, start to make the final tick in that journey to the big league. So we can't thank the Rays enough. As I said, it's more than just players and some coaches. It's almost an organisational relationship.
Those young guys in the West, a lot of young players coming up. We're going to talk about a few of them in a moment, but they have to be able to look and say, you know what, I'm playing with the Rays now. And they know Mike Brissow's story from last year. They know Jake Fraley's in the big leagues. That's a great opportunity for the young players who've yet to really make their name for themselves. This is a great opportunity. Have you heard any feedback from the kids saying, boy, I'm looking forward to playing with these Rays players?
Yeah, we do. And I think that was one of the critical parts of their focus on good quality individuals, good characters, and also talented players. That matched what we're trying to achieve out of our new high performance sort of remodeling with Andy Cole on the head and Dean White on the off-field athlete development side of things. It really matched up perfectly and a good synergy. And one of the key areas that we could have first rounders in Garrett Whitley or Zach Law or Jake Fraley, who's been 4 years at LSU, come out as a 21-year-old, 22-year-old, and some of our younger pros, so Alex, Jesse, Ulrich, even Robbie was still in the college system, could see these players and go, we're kind of the same age, yet their level of development is so far advanced, their work ethic by being in a really quality college system, and you can sort of assess and work with outside of the bubble of Perth. And I think from a training perspective, it also opened the eyes up to our high performance athletes as an aspirational goal to say that guy's only 1 or 2 years older than I am. I've got a lot of work to do to be able to get to where he is. I may not be a first round pick, but now I've got a better idea of what it's going to take to be an 18-year-old in professional baseball from a good college system or a good high school system. So it became a more of a tangible connection from our high performance players, high performance coaches to find out what works with in a Tampa space, and our young pros having opportunity to go, well, there's now 7 or 8 players in that sub 24-year-old age range. I mean, Robbie Glendinning is probably going to be a veteran of the ball club in 3 years' time once TK and Schmidt and Lamb sort of start to retire. And he's going to be 26 years old, 27 years old. He's going to be the veteran bloke with his other crew coming through. So it's a really good mix of youth, enthusiasm, they want to succeed and they want to get better. And the clubhouse has definitely changed. It's been interesting to see 20 years ago of when I first started playing for the WA team into the 2010 sort of dynasty that started to change, and then what started to build now. It's really exciting to see a lot of similarities in that as well.
Dan Vaughn with you, Lockie Dale here on Talking Baseball Australia Live, baseball's best mate. I don't know you've had a chance to see them all. We don't the names, and I'm going to give those. Paul never give those a bit later. But anybody from the Rays stood out to you that you're saying, man, I'm glad we got this guy.
All of them, I guess. I mean, all of them play different roles on the team, and one of the big challenges that we've got is, as we know in the ABL, it's high quality, high leverage situation for our pitchers. Whilst we've got some great talent, Tom Bailey, Dan Schmidt, Cameron Lamb, and we've got some young kids coming through, Will Sheriff, Maddox Snyder, etc. It's just a different level of where these guys come out to, their spin rates, their pitchability, their velocity purely. It's just great to see that as weapons on the mound, whether it be 1, 2 innings out of the bullpen or out starter. So I'm really excited to see, from what I've seen initially in the warm-up, obviously limited prep with COVID and quarantine. Nathan Wiles, Alan Strong from the Rays on the mound, they look really sharp. They're probably the 2 that I just saw last night, so they're fresh. But in Witherspoon, I don't know for what it's but Grant Witherspoon came out with a home run, left-handed swing, obviously do a home run with both salsa, double A arm for the Pirates. So no disrespect to Bo, but sort of it's a credit to both of them. And
Sure.
So that's exciting to see. I think these guys can play. Shane Sasaki's got great speed. The top draft pick from the Rays. There's Ramirez. He'll be a highlight reel in the infield. I think he can play some solid defense. He'll push Robbie and clean up some of the skills of the infield. He can swing it and run as well. So it's a great combination of speed, power, and it complements what we've got with our local talent of TK, Robbie, Ulrich, Jesse, Alex. It's going to be an exciting summer.
It is. It is going to be exciting. I went through that. I was going through the roster, and there's some names that come out here. But I wanted to kind of get your take, as I see a couple of there's some young kids that are going to get a chance. Is there a young kid out there that maybe WA fans maybe need to know about? Because there's some names I see out there. Is there anybody in particular that, hey, might keep an eye on this kid? He could be the next one in line. Is there anybody out there you're really excited to see from the WA mix?
It's like you've got inside information, Dan. I think
how do I get that, Rocky? I don't
know. I think there's 2 guys that will light it up, and one unfortunately is injured at the moment. BJ Cook. We believe he's probably the best talent and the best prospect in the country. His velocity is max velocity on the field is 97, 98. Off the mound he's 91. Just pure arm speed. Athlete, plays shortstop, plays outfield. He can swing the bat. He's got a bit of an injury at the moment, so he'll be a delayed start. Hopefully, he gets a chance in this expanded roster We'd love to have him on. And the other one probably coming through. So both 16, 17 years old is Maddox Stivey. He's going to debut this week on a roster with the Perth Heat. Exciting talent. He'll probably, although he's a two-way player, a lot of our players, obviously at that age group, are two-way players. They swing it pretty good, and they're just athletes. So, Maddox Stivey will probably debut this weekend on the mound. Again, 89 to 90 off the mound. Some good mix and good stuff. But again, young, but he'll get his opportunity to shine. And we've still got guys like Will Sheriff coming back. So, former under 18 World Cup team. We've got a couple of guys in college that have already gone over. Riley Pelkinen's about to go back, and Lockie Waite already in college now after great opportunities at the World Cup last year. So it's exciting times. There's a lot of good kids coming through. The sports science, a little bit of the organisational development, having the opportunity over the last couple of years to go to their spring training, talk to their coaches, talk to their farm directors, director of minor league operations, international scouts, and watching them progress through the system. We're a big proponent of promoting from within, which so are we, developing the homegrown talent, the local talent from underneath. So watching some of those executives, Hein Bloom obviously moving to the Red Sox, but Neander moving up, Mitch Lukovic's moving through. So Carlos Rodriguez is now the director of international scouting. So it's really great to see them promote through. Probably dating back a few years, we're probably coming to wrapping up some of the time with the Orioles. They've been great to Perth and WA's professional baseball 20-odd years. They had a bit of a reshuffle at the Orioles, as we all know, from top to bottom, change of direction, and some of their players just weren't available to come out to play in the ABL for whatever reason. Not the right mix, not the right structure, not the right strategy. So we put a call into Baseball Australia and to Ben Foss at the time to say, look, are there any other organisations out there looking to make moves or come on board? Because we had planned to go pretty much independent ball imports or pro ball imports, not affiliated, not sent to by an organisation. So I think we signed, our catching needs were high, with D. San Miguel moving to Melbourne, Matt Kennelly obviously semi-retiring, Alex Hall was maybe 16 or 17 at the time. So we signed a player, Adam Westenberger, I believe his name was, if I can remember. And then it really spiraled really quickly with obviously the Rays sending players to Brisbane. They'd sort of changed a little bit of focus. I think Brisbane had a slightly different strategy with their large Australian contingent, topping up with some of the Chinese Taipei relationship that they'd developed, which meant the Rays almost got squeezed out in a certain way. So they became arguably a franchise on the open market. Ben Foster introduced us and negotiated and connected us together. And since then, it's been a great relationship moving forward. Mikey Brassow, Jake Fraley, Garrett Whitley early days, Zach Law still in the system. And I think in the next couple of years, we'll start to see some of the players as we go through, start to make that final tick in that journey to the big league. So we can't thank the Rays enough. As I said, it's more than just players and some coaches. It's almost an organisational relationship.
Those young guys in the West, a lot of young players coming up. We're going to talk about a few of them in a moment, but they have to be able to look and say, you know what, I'm playing with the Rays now, and they know Mike Brissow's story from last year. They know Jake Fraley's in the big leagues. That's a great opportunity for the young players to get to really make their name for themselves. This is a great opportunity. Have you heard any feedback from the kids saying, boy, I'm looking forward to playing with these Rays players?
Yeah, we do. I think that was one of the critical parts of their focus on good quality individuals, good characters, and also talented players. That matched what we're trying to achieve out of our new high performance sort of remodelling with Andy Cole at the head and Dean White on the off-field athlete development side of things. It really matched up perfectly and a good synergy. And one of the key areas, if you could have first rounders in Garrett Whitley or Zach Law or Jake Fraley, who's been 4 years at LSU, come out as a 21-year-old, 22-year-old, and some of our younger pros, Alex, Jesse, and even Robbie was still in the college system, could see these players and go, we're kind of the same age, yet their level of development is so far advanced, their work ethic by being in a really quality college system, and you can sort of assess and work with outside of the bubble of Perth. And I think from a training perspective, it also opened the eyes up to our high performance athletes. An aspirational goal to say that guy's only 1 or 2 years older than I am. I've got a lot of work to do to be able to get to where he is. I may not be a first round pick, but now I've got a better idea of what it's going to take to be an 18-year-old in professional baseball from a good college system or a good high school system. So it became a more of a tangible connection from our high performance players, high performance coaches to find out what works with in the campus space, and our young pros having opportunity to go. Well, there's now 7 or 8 players in that sub 24-year-old age range. I mean, Robbie Glendinning is probably going to be a veteran of the ball club in 3 years' time once TK and Schmidt and Lamb sort of start to retire, and he's going to be 26 years old, 27 years old. He's going to be the veteran bloke. With his own crew coming through. So it's a really good mix of youth, enthusiasm, they want to succeed and they want to get better. And the clubhouse has definitely changed. It's been interesting to see 20 years ago, when I started playing for the WA team into the 2010 sort of dynasty that started to change, and then what started to build out. So it's really exciting to see a lot of similarities in that as well.
Dan Vaughn with you, Lockie Dale here on Talking Baseball Australia Live, baseball's best made. I don't know you've had a chance to see them all. We don't the names, and I'm going to give those. Paul and I will give those a bit later. But anybody from the Rays stood out to you that you're saying, man, I'm glad we got this guy.
All of them, I guess. I mean, all of them play different roles on the team, and one of the big challenges that we've got is, as we know in the ABL, it's high quality, high leverage situation for our pitchers. Whilst we've got some great talent, Tom Bailey, Dan Schmidt, and Cameron Lamb, and we've got some young kids coming through, Will Sheriff, Matt Stuyve, etc. It's just a different level of where these guys come out to. Their spin rates, their pitchability, their velocity purely. It's just great to see that as weapons on the mound, whether it be 1-2 innings out of the bullpen or as starters. So I'm really excited to see, from what I've seen initially in the warm-ups, obviously limited prep with COVID and quarantine, but Nathan Wiles, Alan Strong from the Rays on the mound, they look really sharp. They're probably the 2 that I just saw last night, so they're fresh. But in Witherspoon, I don't know if I wanted to, but Grant Witherspoon came out and went opposite field home run, left-handed swing, opposite field home run off Bo Salsa, which is a AA arm. Yeah. So no disrespect to Bo, but sort of credit to both of them. And so that's exciting to see. I think these guys will play. Shane Sasaki's got great speed, top draft pick from the Rays. Abusa Ramirez, he's just He'll be a highlight reel in the infield. I think he can play some solid defense. He'll push Robbie and clean up some of the skills in the infield, but can swing it and run as well. So it's a great combination of speed, power, and it complements what we've got with our local talent of TK, Robbie, Jesse. It's going to be an exciting summer.
It is. It is going to be exciting. I went through that. I was going through the roster, and there's some names that come out here. But I wanted to kind of get your take, as I see a couple of there's some young kids that are going to get a chance. Is there a young kid out there that maybe WA fans maybe need to know about? There's some names that I see out there. Is there anybody in particular that, hey, might keep an eye on this kid? He could be the next one in line. Is there anybody out there you're really excited to see from the WA mix?
It's like you've got inside information, Dan. It's great. I think.
How did I get that, Rocky? I don't
know. I think there's 2 guys that will light it up, and one unfortunately is injured at the moment. BJ Cook. We believe he's probably the best talent, the best prospect in the country. His velocity, his max velocity on the field is 97, 98. Off the mound, he's 91, 90. Off the mound, just pure arm speed. He's an athlete, plays shortstop, plays outfield. He can swing the bat. Still a bit of an injury at the moment, so he'll be a delayed start. Hopefully he gets a chance in this expanded roster, and we'd love to have him on. And the other one probably coming through, so both 16, 17 years old, is Maddox Stivey. He's going to debut this year or this week on the roster with the Perth. Exciting talent. Probably, although he's a two-way player, a lot of our players, obviously, in that age group are two-way players. They swing it pretty good, and they're just athletes. So Maddox Stivey will probably debut this weekend in the round. Again, 89 to 90 off the mound. Some good mix and good stuff, but again, young, he'll get his opportunity to shine. And we've still got guys like Will Sheriff coming back, so former under-18 World Cup team. We've got a couple of guys in college that have already got a rather to go back, and Ricky Waite already in college now after great opportunities at the World Cup last year. So it's exciting times. There's a lot of good kids coming through. I think that's we're just in a really good space in a high performance development pathway. We've got we've still got the veterans of TK floating around. They can sort of impart his knowledge to the Robbies and the Robbies to the young guys, and they set that sort of cool window of the next 10 years is going to be really exciting.
You bring up TK, and I was going through the game notes or putting the game notes together for this weekend. His numbers career-wise are amazing. I mean, he's top 4 in dang near every category, in top 2 in all the the RBIs, home runs, stolen bases, hits, runs. He shows no history of slowing down. This guy is just something special. I don't think fans quite realize that. I know you realize that, but tell the fans maybe what makes TK so special, Tim Cannella.
Yeah, I think obviously the family who can all play the game of baseball, which is great, and the competitive nature that they've had from such an early age has pushed each other for the greater success of them as individuals. They've also been able to keep themselves mellow and I guess a real level head across the board, which has allowed, as we know, baseball is a game of failure. You have your peaks, you have your troughs. It's about your teammates and your support network that manages to keep you level as long as possible, so you can perform at a consistent space. So I think that from the outside in is a really key to Tim's success. And I think people don't. It's the age-old thing that people don't see the work that goes behind the scenes. People see TK roll out and play, and he plays club ball. He's down coaching. He's doing one-on-one coaching sessions. He plays for the Perth Heat. He's fighting fires. He's a father to 2 kids, husband to Anna. He's got a lot going on, but the determination factors that are critical in success. But what you also don't see is preparation. And he'll be down. Arguably, in club ball, we saw him down a couple of weeks ago, just in the local leagues. And Tim's down there an hour before the rest of the team show up, rolling on the ball, massaging, getting loose, getting his body right, stretching it out, and preparing and looking after his body. As you get older, you've got to look after it more. It takes longer to get ready. So he doesn't. It's not a show and go for guys for Tim Cannella. It's meticulous in his planning. He understands what he needs to get his body right. Understands what he needs to do to perform, to compete at a high level, whether it be club ball, whether it be ABL, whether it be for Team Australia. So it's the things that people don't see, which I believe makes Tim really great for whoever play the game.
Baseball's best mate continues here on a Friday morning. Mark Salpole going to be pitching all season, well, not this round, but the rest of the season. And usually he's a late Christmas gift or a first-of-the-year gift. But what can you tell us about that situation? It appears that he's going to be all in with the Heat, all in baseball in Australia.
Yeah, he's. I guess contractual basis will determine how it goes from his deals in Korea or Japan or anywhere else. But for the moment, he's uncontracted. He loves what's going on in the Perth Heat, wants to be a part of it. He's a local guy that always wants to give back. Whether he's contracted, can't play, he still comes down to training sessions, still in the dugout on game days, hanging out in the grandstand, talking to people, talking to sponsors, talking to members. So he's one of the greats that people haven't unfortunately been able to see for a couple of years due to his professional playing stuff and rest of arms. So Warwick came back a couple of weeks ago, went through his quarantine. Caught up for coffee. He'd already expressed interest, and we'd spoken loosely beforehand that he wanted to play. we caught up for coffee, trying to find out where he's at, what he wants, what support needs. And he goes, I want to play for the Heat. I want to play for Team Australia. I want to play for the next 5 to 10 years for my state and for my country. And let's work on a plan of how to do that. So back working out at Diamond Fitness with the other Heat guys. And he will join. He started throwing, just playing catch. He started throwing already. The expectation, sort of just, we'll see how the progress goes, but I'd expect potentially, definitely the last home series set of 8 games. Due for qualification, he'll probably go to the hub in Adelaide. And then depending on where he's at, he's developed maybe earlier. It's exciting, I think, fans to be able to see Warwick Sawpole back on the mound. Arguably, the only other guy that would love to get a coup is Liam Hendricks. But outside of that, I think Warwick, and no disrespect to Warwick, but I think Liam and what he's achieved, Warwick might be the next best thing to Liam. So it's really cool to see. And again, the best thing about Warwick is he's being back here every year, doing everything he can to try and help the younger guys, the coaching staff, and raise the standard of baseball in Perth, which is good.
Yeah, you'd have Warwick, Unsworth, Sawpole, Sussler, and then that probably a nice 1-2-3 punch. And this anybody else, that's a pretty good staff right there as far as rotation wise. Yep. You mentioned you mentioned Liam, and this is something I've noticed. Some of the guys in Australia have mentioned this to the media. I know you're not surprised by what he's doing, but are you surprised that he's kind of under the radar? I mean, he's a star. This is a guy in the States that, if you follow baseball, you know who this guy is. Are you surprised he's kind of under the radar a little bit in Australia, or is that changing perhaps?
It's starting to change, yeah. It is starting to change, but it's funny, and the Australian media market is just an interesting beast. You get the tidbits of great news stories. I mean, Daniel Ricciardo is arguably making $40-50 million racing for McLaren next year, and barely cracks a mention in the newspapers and on TV unless he wins a race. It's just unfathomable. He's the highest paid player or athlete in Australia. Liam's probably going to be the second in not too distant future. And other than the token mentions when they sign a contract or make a team or whatever else, it's very Australian focused in football, in cricket, in rugby, and the key sports. So it's a long, slow process to try and change that. We're hoping that the broadcast deal that the ABL and the owners have got together to put their minds together to find out how to get a broadcast deal and get baseball on TV, whether it be free-to-air, pay TV, whatever else. I think that's a great step and a great initiative, and they need to be commended for that, because I guess my opinion is that until we can get baseball on TV, you're arguing. So, and that's the beauty of having the support of the Perth Heat ownership with others, is the fact that they're pushing it with their own capital, their own money to try and get it up and running, and I'm sure replicated in the other states. So Baseball WA couldn't deliver it as a not-for-profit based organisation of players, but I'm hoping that with some great support and great backing of ownership and the NBL, we can get the game on TV. Warwick Sawpoles and Kennellys and Liam Hendricks will be household names, and part of me you feel a little sad in a way that guys like Tim Kennelly and Warwick Sawpole may never play on free-to-air TV in Australia, and arguably go down as two of potentially the best players that have ever played in the country.
No doubt. Lachlan Dale, Director of Baseball Ops for the Perth Heat. Dan Vaughn with you on Talking Baseball Australia Live. Wrapping things up here, a couple things. First off, you mentioned the states governing bodies. Every state's got one. I guess, and this, I'm kind of leaping off a limb here. Where are the relationships overall with Baseball Australia and the state? I mean, not so much Baseball Australia, but each franchise in the states. Don't these two parties need to get along? I've heard some fans grumbling about that. It's been my opinion and Paul's opinion. There's been certain relationships across the country. State bodies, teams aren't getting along. Shouldn't they all get along? Shouldn't the ABL and the state leagues be hand in hand?
Absolutely, 100%. I think there's different mechanisms, and there has to be a relationship to working as a collective. Baseball is far too small, with far little revenue streams and capital and resources to be working independently. One's delivering the professional element for fans and spectators and increasing the profile on the map of that side of things, and the other's trying to develop the underpinning programs, pathways, and competitions for kids to play the game and have the aspirational pathway to be able to get to the Perth Heat. So, one of our key areas is we believe it's our role to set up the framework that kids can start at T-ball and 3-4 years old, move through the system into machine pitch, little league, junior baseball, high performance programs, the Little League touring teams, whatever it may be. But there's a pathway that they know that we're trying to get to play for the Perth Heat. That's where we're trying to get to. It's critical that the relationships are hand in hand, going to government with joint funding of proposals, trying to get stadium development upgrades, making sure there's investment in the right areas to increase that fan engagement. The whole lot needs to happen. It's sad and difficult to see some states with fractured relationships. I think that's only going to hurt the game when, in a time when we need to be united and all as one to be able to make this game as good as it can. We can't afford to have cracks in the armour. Right. And I think that first and foremost needs to be the overarching strategic objective of Baseball Australia, the ABL, the ownership and the state associations. How can we be better at what we do? We don't have the funding from government and Olympics, the winning gold medals. We're not the AFL. We're not rugby. We're not any of those big sports. But baseball is such a unique sport, but it creates so many opportunities that no other sport in Australia can. I think the pathway of where you can travel the world and be a part of something really unique as a team environment, representing your state or your club, the relationships you build over years, there's not as much of that mercenary, gangster, professional sports from not to say the AFL is, but you can be traded any time from state to state, team to team, and you can't do anything about it. Whereas I think there's such a great, unique loyalty with playing for your state in a professional team, professional league. So I think that's critical. I think we've got an opportunity to do what other sports haven't been able to do. I think we're small, we're nimble enough, we're agile enough that we could do that. It just needs to get some heads in the room, and hopefully post-COVID or post this season, after such a wild and wonderful year, we can start those developments and the ongoing relationships to be formalised and get together and brainstorm and find out that roadmap of how do we be the best we can be on and off the field.
Well, you sound like a broadcast. Thanks to Lachlan Dale there for joining us on the show. I apparently had a little bit of a mic issue there, so I apologize if that was the case. But I promised a little update here as well, and just pulling the volume down here. Just a little update here. Talking Baseball Australia, live baseball's best mate. My name is Dan Vaughn. Paul Morgan was with me a moment ago, and he's jumped off, and we're going to jump off as well. What we do know, and there's really been no change except for that I do have, how to put this, they're still working things out in the West. Perth is well aware of what the situation is. This is not the lack of any tweets or anything. It's not because the Heat don't know or what was going on. They do know. They apparently were even working, all night with some solutions. There have been several opportunities and different possibilities out there. We believe, Paul and I believe, that there will not be a game tonight against Canberra at newly named Empire. We can talk about that, Empire Ballpark. But we do believe there'll be something out the ballpark in some form or fashion. Well, what that'll look like, anybody's guess. That could be inter-squad, kids versus vets, shirts and skins. I don't know. You already do that as a kid, in the summertime. It could be anything. But that appears to be the way things are going. But for what we understand, Canberra had two, in case you missed this earlier, Canberra had two groups of players, some in New South Wales. And of course, we know the lay of the land. Canberra, or ACT and New South Wales right there on each other's doorstep. The group that in New South Wales is due to fly out, and then some of the folks from Canberra, which you got to fly usually to Melbourne or to Sydney anyway to go west, they did not depart this morning. They did not leave overnight, which is not uncommon most of the times when the team from the West goes east, they fly the red eye. That's not what happens coming east. Usually they come in the morning of the game because of the 3-hour time change. It gets them in mid-morning, able to get to the hotel, really check in, relax, sleep 5, 6, 7 hours, then head to the ballpark. That's kind of the way it usually works. But from what I understand, that the Cavs have not, as a group, they were coming in 2 groups, have not made it. Now, in case you're wondering why that's the case, overnight, the government of Western Australia had also, as Paul mentioned, what did he say, slammed the door up, I guess he said again, whatever you called it. That is also part of it as well. So that's this whole trickle down. And it traces back to the whole Northern Beaches cluster that came out of COVID a couple of days ago, if you saw that back there in New South Wales. So this is where all this connect the dots is coming from. Could Brisbane travel? They're not playing, and we play them. That's a very something Paul did bring up. I did shoot off an email during that interview to see if I could get a response. I haven't gotten one yet, but I don't know if that's on the table. I don't think with the time frame that's going to happen, although it wouldn't rule it out. But what I would guess is going to happen, you're going to have some kind of baseball celebration tonight at the ballpark in Perth. Of course, stay tuned to the Heat Twitter, Talking Baseball Australia's Twitter, mine and Paul as well. We'll get you what we know, and when we get an update, we'll also have it on Talking Baseball Australia on our Facebook page and, of course, the league. I haven't seen anything new come out in the last hour, or I'll say half hour or so, as far as anything new. And a lot of this came down very, very late. I remember the time zones. If you live in North America, 3-hour difference for the East and the West. So a lot of this was already coming down very early in the morning and very late in the evening over there, or very early in the morning, both places. And some of this was really, it came after 10 o'clock last night. A bit of a shock to everybody when those border restrictions went up. That also happened. There was a lot of this kind of just dominoes, ding, 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 and it went that direction. I'm looking at a couple of things here that one of the things to remember as well, there was a KO broadcast scheduled for tonight, and that's also in the mix here too. I don't know how that affects any decision-making going forward, and what does happen. Would the KO broadcast go forward with some kind of all-star game? Would that be possible? And I know the Heat pre-sale was fairly sizable. But what I understand, about 2,000 pre-sale, roughly. That was what they were expecting in the 2,000-ish number right there. So anyway, that is what I understand. So that is the situation. And I'm looking just to double check here if anything else has come up. And I don't see anything. Let me double check the league website quickly here, because I have not been there. The league obviously scrambling to figure out what they're going to do. One thing to remember, this is all what was put up schedule-wise, fixture-wise, is all subject to change. And you're going to have some ability to move around here. That's one reason the hubs are in place. That's there for a reason. There's going to be some fluid things here. This is probably not the first time we're going to have an issue. It may be the only time we have an issue. I hope so. But there is some flexibility built into this thing, and I think there are contingency plans out there. Also, this is one advantage of the staggered start. You're not playing. Let's say Perth and Canberra don't play tonight. They don't play at all this weekend, let's just say. And they're not going to be any further behind than Brisbane and Adelaide. Now, granted, Sydney and Melbourne, and if they don't play the rest of the weekend, they're only going to be one game ahead of everybody else as well. So there's that going into it as well. What you don't want to, the staggered start I was worried about, because I was worried, what happens if 8 games go here and 8 game gets banged here, and what happens there? This actually may work out to the advantage, because you're going to have, the way this thing, the timing of it is, it looks like if they all do stop for the weekend, let's say, one game will be in the books, and that'll be it. You won't have, like I said, 4 games here for 4 teams, and then a couple teams have none, and then, you won't have an issue like that. So that's what I'm hearing. Also, AJ says, and this is a very good point, hub up everything, jump a plan. And I got to tell you, I have a feeling, AJ, that's probably one of the back proposals on the back burner. That if all things broke this way, and the reason I say that because I went through this very same thing. I know you guys hate hearing me say that. The American Association started off with 3 hubs, wound up with 2, and eventually with 1. But the hubs are all there for safety reasons to eventually move teams back to the normal locations. It wouldn't shock me that now in this pinch that they go, okay, hub only, let's do it, and turn it into a bit of a World Baseball Classic, Olympic style kind of thing. I would think that's possible. I have no confirmation on that, but I think that's something that's probably on the list of things. What happens if this happens? That would be the way to go. It will be interesting 20 to 48 hours, no doubt about it. As you heard Lockie and I, to pull the curtain back, we taped that last night. So that was fresh, but we had talked about we knew the border situation could get dicey, but as I mentioned when Paul was on earlier, we thought probably Monday, Tuesday, if that was to happen. And then the league would have a little time of 10-day window to kind of decide what they're going to do next, because the next series wasn't until 30th, that stretch. So there was that as well. But I think, again, there was no surprise this happened, but the surprise of the timing of it happened. I think it caught everybody off guard because I think everybody thought this weekend was safe going forward. So, but yeah, it should be interesting times. And again, you have to be flexible. As fans, as a baseball family, as organizations, as media, we're all going to be flexible. If we're going to get this thing in, we're going to have to be able to change on the fly. We're going to have to look at the lineup card and say, okay, well, you know what? We're going to insert this guy here. And speaking of lineup cards, I wanted to get into the Aces lineup last night. And I thought about this morning on my jog. And this is where this whole thing is sad, because I wanted to talk about to you guys, in a 24-game season, that was a pretty big win last night for Sydney. Usually I'd say, it's one game and opening day, yeah. But with 24 games, they all mean a lot more than they usually do. So, but they'll make a decision quick. And with a shortened season and with a short window, I think that's probably in place. I do know this, maybe back as early as September, there was talk of a very similar plan that I gave you, a hub with a tournament style, festival style, much like the whole festival thing Cam and I talked about a couple of weeks ago, very similar type deal. So, and that's all I got here. But the update is that the Heat are working on contingency plans. There's nothing official. There's been no official word that they're going to cancel the game tonight or anything like that. What I do know is they're looking for ways to play something. And what that is. So you got tickets to go out to Empire Park tonight. I would still hold on to those and be out there having your chips and your beers and all that. Now, who you may see play, it may be folks in Canberra jerseys. It may be an all-star team. You could probably come up with an all-star team of import players in the state league. That's been done before. That's happened before. Remember Ken McGee used to put together an all-star team and play the Heat in early 2 or 3 years ago, 4 years ago. They play a 3-game series over a weekend. It was not uncommon for an all-star team to play the Heat, and even some of the Heat imports have played for the American team. Now, that's happened before. So I can see something like that. But I don't see anything else. Let me check my mailbox one more time. I don't see anything. Let me check my message board one more time. But, yeah, I don't see anything new here to give you guys. But in case you missed it, Canberra didn't board their flights to head west today. There was also a rumor out there that's been mentioned in the ABC, and I trust the ABC, especially Ben Cameron. I know Ben, and I think Ben knows his journalism, and as well as really, some of the other folks too. The 2 other pieces of information came with the ABC as well, and I'll kind of read them to you quickly. But that Julian Abbott said that the ABL season is in disarray with Canberra still in Canberra, and then Cameron came along and added further to this. Melbourne is in crisis talks out of New South Wales, possibly in hightailing it via car. So that's that. There's 2 situations there, not just the Perth situation, but the situation in Sydney. And so, yeah, and you know what? I think, Jared, there'll be a double dip tomorrow. And again, it may look differently. And that's the thing we've talked about. Over the course of this season, there are going to be times it's going to look different. For example, Aaron Whitefield's not going to be playing for Adelaide. It's going to look different not having him out there with the best players, Australian players in recent memory. Won't be out there. But then you're going to see, Warwick Saupold's going to probably be number 2 starter for the Heat in a couple of weeks. There's going to be some different things where in recent memory he hasn't been out there as much. You're going to have some leeway to make changes on the fly, and that's just going to be part of it. And we're going to get through this, and it's going to have to be that way. This is why, again, this is what Major League Baseball did it. They adjusted. Remember, Major League Baseball had no plans for a hub for postseason until very late in the game. So I feel pretty good that you're going to see something out there, and it's opportunity. If you don't have opening weekend, yes, that sucks. And yeah, you may have to ask yourself, what do the fans pay for? But you got opportunity here to do something in both Sydney and in Perth and turn into a baseball celebration. And I know it may not be the same and it may not be what you expected, but that's what we got to have to get through this thing because it's a crazy, crazy time now. Crazy, crazy time. Okay, last call, questions and comments. I don't see anything else, but again, that is what I have for you. That the ABC did say that, again, this is not just me talking. This is the ABC. And by the way, this happened 17 hours ago. This is what I was talking about. Following the consultation with the New South Wales Health folks, the WA Chief Health Officer provided updates and said that anybody that arrived in the WA from New South Wales since Friday is being sent home to isolation until they test negative for COVID and must get those tests in 24 hours. So anybody arriving into WA from New South Wales will be able to wait for a test anyway. So I don't, well, they may not play tonight. You can see them playing tomorrow. And then you might just say, well, we'll just wait and move the thing altogether. I mean, you could even throw out, playing this whole series in Canberra down the road and, Perth being the home team for 4 games and be the visiting team. I mean, it's a lot of double headers, but you can expand rosters. I mean, that's already been done anyway. The point system's been adjusted. You can adjust them again. There's all kinds of things. You're going to see some fluid stuff going on here, and we'll do that. So anyway, all right, guys, thank you for joining us. Thanks to Paul Morgan, my broadcast partner, and he was ready to call a game tonight. Still hope he does, but doesn't know who is going to be calling. And I got game notes to send, but I'm not really sure if we're going to play him. Also to Lachlan Dale, CEO of Baseball Western Australia and the baseball operations director of the Perth Heat. Always appreciate Lockie's time. Always been good to Paul and I over the years. Also, I appreciate the league being up on top and giving us an answer. They told us point blank that what was going on. They're still working on it, and we appreciate that insight as well. And for everybody out there, all you guys that took time to stop by here, big shout out to Stuart Capel, who actually gave me a tip this afternoon. I was sitting in school with the kiddos, and he messaged me saying, "Hey, you might want to look there's some border closings going on. I'm going to watch that." And I hadn't seen that yet. And at that time, it was midnight in the West. And sure enough, he was right. The border closings were going on. So big thanks to Stuart for giving the update of the morning news in Australia to kind of say, hey, I want to watch this. And he was right on about that. But I appreciate that. And for all you guys stopping by worldwide in North America and, of course, in the beautiful land down under. Again, it's a crazy time. Crazy, crazy time. I say it all the time. Let's be better fans tomorrow than we were today. Let's love more tomorrow than we do today. I don't care if you follow Canberra, Sydney, whoever. Let's all be good to each other, and let's all be as one baseball family. One family in baseball. Let's all get better tomorrow than we were today. You bet, James. Good to see you too. Hoping for some baseball this weekend. And again, we were going to debut a brand new show, and not sure if we're going to do it, but do watch ABL fans and both ABL fan sites and the love of the game. And of course, Talking Baseball Australia. We'll keep you updated if we do a show. We had a planned show going tonight when the Heat were done, and we're going to have a little something live for you. But that's got to be tabled for the time being. So all good. Jared, appreciate your time as well. Much love to everybody out there. We'll see you this time next week. Same time, same place. Oh, by the way, Paul and I will bring you, if we get to anything, any kind of update, we're going to bring that to you live when we have something to give you. So watch us right here on Facebook Live. We'll break in and give you what we do know when something does come official. It may be me asleep and Paul doing it by himself, but we'll figure it out, okay? Figure this whole thing out. You bet. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you guys next week on Baseball's Best Mate, Talking Baseball Australia Live. See you then, everybody.
some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I ever get back for its root. Root for the puppy. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
Let's get some runs!
What, Tom?
Get some runs!